gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up on this first Wednesday in September 4th, being brought to you, not brought to you by, I don't know what the hell I was about to say that. I've never said that one day in my life. You know, I'm probably a little nervous. You know, the man in black, Steven Seagal's illegitimate child, as I said earlier. Is it Pennsylvania or New Jersey you're from? Which one is it? I knew
Pennsylvania.
Pennsyltucky. You know, he's got all the adjectives that I could think of, but at the same time, he knows the death touch. The seven deadly points that if he contacted them in your body, you would just die. And I always jack his last name up, so I'm going to jack it up again. Joining us all the way from PA, it's talking about the history of martial arts today in his new book. It's Mr. Antonio. Say it, Antonio. Say your last name.
Aloia.
Not like a lawyer, but Aloia.
Exactly.
He's from New Jersey. Like he's from New Jersey. Aloia. I just realized that it's like way easier to think about it that way. Like if I was saying that you were from, like if I was from Long Island and I said I need a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's actually how I've explained it to people in recent years now. But yes,
that makes perfect sense. Well, welcome back, brother. If you guys didn't know it, Antonio was on, I believe it was back in March of this year or somewhere near then. Was it March of this year or last year?
I think it was last year.
Okay, so March of last year, and we talked about his book on the history of Aikido. If anybody who knows me knows I studied Aikido for 3 years, really enjoyed it. To me, it is the best of all the martial arts. Are you frozen, Antonio? I think he froze on me. We'll know if he's. I can hear you, but to me, it's the best of all the martial arts because again, it's the way it was created, the way O Sensei did it. I was a big fan, but now he's got a new book we're going to be talking about today, and the title of the new book has words in it I cannot pronounce, so that will be Antonio's job to pronounce all these words because I cannot do so. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean I try not to butcher names if I don't have to. But let's go ahead and get into some house cleaning before we find out about all these awesome things and what he's got going on. As always, folks, over my right shoulder, we got the big board for sticker and a cause. If you've got something you support and something you're believing in, you send me out a message on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. Our email is the above the bar podcast at gmail.com. Hello, Miss Cody. Our website is the above the bar podcast at gmail or the above the bar podcast.com. Send me a message. Let me know what you got going on. Folks, I apologize for my voice today. Also, I do have a little head congestion, so if I mute the mic for coughing and things of that nature, that's what's going on there. But reach out to us on there. Let me know what you got going on. Maybe you've got your own dojo. Maybe you've got your own band. Maybe you actually sing the song, I Think I'm Turning Japanese, and you have a sticker for that because you do martial arts and you play music and you want to send me that sticker. Well, we'll put that right up here and we'll read about it live on the air. The other thing we got to talk about is we got to talk about the people that pay the bills around here, and that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. They are your largest window treatment company in the world is Budget Blinds. They have locations in Canada, the United States. Here locally, we have our ones in Latham, up in Saratoga, but this one here, this is Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie that pay the bills. This month, for the month of September, if you reach out to them and let them know you're there to belly up to the bar, their sale is buy 2 window treatments, get 1 free. So they're basically giving away a window treatment. If you've never had custom window treatments and you don't understand what that means, folks, these are not your run-of-the-mill $30, $35 window treatments that you buy at Walmart and the cat eats or the kids look through it one time and snap them. These come with anything from at least a 5-year no questions asked warranty all the way up to they have some stuff that carries a lifetime no questions asked warranty, meaning for you buy it one time and you never have to buy it again. That's how much they believe in the products they carry. So that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Coxsackie, New York. All right, Antonio. All the stuff is done. Let's center our chi for a moment. Let's go ahead. And look, folks, you're not supposed to blow out your mouth. It's in through your nose and out through your nose. If you do, because if you force it out through your nose, you're keeping the air by your brain and getting the bad air away from your brain. Do you know these things? I know these things. But so tell everybody what the name of the new book is, Antonio.
Sure thing. So one, thank you for having me again. And two, name of the new book is Takehiko Ishikawa, Judo's Quiet Master. And it's really a biography about Takehiko Ishikawa.
So now, before we get too far, who is, say it one more time.
Takehiko Ishikawa. We can just refer to him as
Takehiko.
Sure thing.
Who is Takehiko?
Takehiko, or as I will call him, Ishikawa.
Okay, Ishikawa.
Because I spent like 4 years doing this.
Okay.
But he is, or was, I'm sorry, he was a judo practitioner, one of the highest actually ranked judo practitioners here in the United States, all the way up until the 1980s, and they moved back to Japan, and he then passed away there in 2008. So what makes him kind of stand out is that, well, like I said, he was the highest rank, but he was the only Japanese like 6th, 7th, 8th, and then 9th dan or 9th degree black belt that was over here in Philadelphia for like 20 years.
Oh wow.
From the late 1950s to the mid 1970s, and he really built up judo in the Philadelphia region.
So he stayed in the why Philly? Like, I guess it seems very odd to me of all the locations. Like, I don't think about Philly as a large Japanese population. I used to live outside of there in the Lansdale area in Telford. So I don't think of Philly as a big, like, oh, there's a lot of reason to have some Japanese folks around here. Like, why there?
Well, so to back up a little bit, in 1953, and I'm sure we'll get to different parts of his life throughout this interview, but in 1953, he was part of a goodwill tour of all these Air Force bases to, for the Air Force to try and say, hey, we want to build up a judo program for our airmen. And Philly was wound up being one of his stops, and he really seemed to enjoy Philly. He also seems to have noticed that the North, Philly, New York, etc., seem to have gotten a hold on judo or had a better understanding of judo than, say, the southern states. He didn't really explain his reasoning as to why, but besides that feeling that he had, there was another super important feeling, or actually person, by the name of Helen Foose, who wound up being a benefactor, essentially his benefactor, to keep him up in Philadelphia. Helen Foose was actually a judo practitioner. She got to, by the time Ishikawa came to the United States, she was about first, second dan degree black belt, and she really wanted a really good judo teacher, not only for her but for everyone else that was around her. So she wound up being one of the main influences in his choosing of Philadelphia to reside in for 20 plus years.
I got a question. I've heard you say judo practitioner a couple of times. I always thought people who did judo were referred to as judo players.
Yes, that is true. Absolutely. I use practitioner because I try to keep it not as a sport, even though it is there are sporting aspects to it, especially those that are in, those that compete under the Olympic rules. And absolutely, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. I keep saying practitioner because I feel there is still some, martial art to it instead of being a martial sport or just a sport in general. I may be in the minority of that, but I've been, I will refer to as, judo players as judo practitioners.
Okay.
But as you point out, they are judo players as the majority of people refer to them. Yes.
that's the majority of what it is, what most people would think of it. Now I'm going to kind of make a left turn with some
Mhm.
judo jujitsu question here for you. And we may have talked about this before. I'll jack the whole story up the way it was explained to me. Have you ever heard the story of the whole judo versus jujitsu street fight story?
I don't think so. I don't think I have. I
Like
don't think I
it was
have.
told to me one time, and it was one of those ones like I don't know the whole thing, but it was basically um because the Japanese police practice judo. Is that correct? It's like
Oh, yeah. Was it that they were practicing old style jujitsu, and then when judo came along, judo just kind of like wiped the floor with everybody else, and they're like, "Oh crap, we should do judo now."
it's something
Is
like
that?
that, and then there was like an actual like no doubt about it brawl, and
Mhm.
like there were people that were like truly badly injured. It was like this like your best five versus our best five. Like some guys had broken arms, concussions, like supposedly somebody died, and it was like okay, we're all just going to kind of when it was all said and done, I think it was the judo ended up kind of outdoing it because of the way it was put together. Does that sound familiar? Or am I remembering the story
Yeah,
completely wrong?
yeah, absolutely. It does sound really, really familiar. And actually, I read a more recent biography of Kano, Jigoro Kano, the founder, and that story did come up. Um, when and now that we're talking about it now, now you're you know running my gears in
Reminding
my
you.
head. Um, the the takeaway of that is that it's not that from what people have said is that it's not that judo's techniques were better. It's just the way that judo was practiced. Judo had the aspect of randori, or testing each other out with the moves and everything. As while the older style jujitsu didn't really have that sort of structure, and how excuse me how Kano came to that. I don't think that that biography even really kind of um, touched upon how he figured out how to do randori without people dying
Right,
or
without
getting injured.
cracking somebody's arm in half and
Yeah, exactly. So, but but the fact that judo and Kano found this medium of, hey, we can practice on one another without really killing each other, gave the judo players or the judo practitioners at that time an edge over their um, older style jujitsu practitioners.
so back to your book though for a second. So Ishikawa, right?
Ishikawa, yes.
So Master Ishikawa, he's here for 20 years in Philly.
Hmm.
Does he ever actually open an official school? Is there anything like because I mean, obviously we've all heard the Bruce Lee stories where it was like, oh, don't teach round eyes about our martial arts and like, and it was really a big thing, like for
Hmm.
Asian that came to the United States, like, hey, this is ours. We can't have them doing this. They're gonna taint it. They're gonna use it the wrong way. It's gonna be Dana White's gonna get a hold of it, and we're gonna have MMA. It's gonna be I'm kidding. Look, Dana, if you
Right.
want to come on the show, I think I think you're amazing, dude. But no, seriously, um, what was like what did he do with it when he was here?
Yeah, sure. So he did wound up opening a judo school. It was called the Ishikawa Judo Club. Um, Judo, as I found in my research, really for some reason they don't like to call themselves dojos. They like to call themselves clubs, and I think that may be a way for them to get some sort of insurance, or they get some sort of group. Um, su- Excuse me, some better affiliation with other sports, so that it's always
I'd say because
included
of the
in.
player side to it. It probably has
Yeah,
something to do with like, this is a sporting event. We're a club. Dojo kind of says, no, this is training for self defense or martial arts. No, that makes sense.
yeah. So judo, not only, I mean, sorry, Ishikawa, not only him used club, but everybody else used judo club here, judo club there. So Ishikawa did open Ishikawa Judo Club with the backing of Helen Foos. Helen Foos, it should be pointed out, um, she and her husband, even though her husband later passes, I think in the 70s. Anyway, but she and her husband actually were coal brokers. They were in the coal broking industry, so they were the
Oh,
middleman between those, the coal mines and those who use coal. So they made a killing off of those coal mines or the coal deals. Um, so the house that she had was a mansion for that time, for the 1950s, 1960s sort of thing. Um, but to get back to your original point, Ishikawa did open up a school, and he attracted, throughout his time in Philly, he attracted people who just somehow fell in love with judo, and he brought competition to the East Coast, really. Um, More so than actually the previous school that was in Philly at the time, called the Philly Judo Club. It was actually first called the Philly Jujitsu Club, and then was changed to the Judo Club. And then Ishikawa opened up his school, and actually, since he was the highest ranked person in along the East Coast at that time, he was um, yeah, he was either sixth or seventh dan. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but no one else was that high up in rank. Like everyone was like first, second, third dan maybe. So
I'm gonna pause
he
you for a second. I gotta pause you
yeah
for a second because a lot
yeah
of people don't think understand what that means to be. They've probably met someone. They've gone to their local, karate dojo, or they've gone to the pay for your belt at
mhm.
taekwondo, and they've seen these things, and they're like, and somebody's like, "I'm a first degree black belt." But when you get into those other third, fourth, fifth dan levels, can you explain what that process means or what someone has to do comparably to, and look, I'm taking nothing away from somebody who's a first or second degree black belt, don't get that twisted.
Mhm.
But we're talking the difference here in, well, my buddy is a major or a colonel compared to, yeah, my buddy is a 1 star or 2 star general. Like there is a big world of difference in those two. Yes, they're both officers. Yes, they're all black belts, but there is a difference in that. Can you explain to people what that means real quick before you go?
Yeah,
Because we're
absolutely.
saying it, and I don't want people to be confused by it.
No, absolutely. So think of like your first dan, your first degree black belt, as you getting your high school diploma. You've gone through the curriculum. You've gotten to the point where it's like, hey, everything's passing. Everything you're doing right now is passing. It's good. Um, you can kind of consider, um, you know, second, third, fourth, even though some people have a different opinion on fourth. But those next three levels are getting your undergrad. You put in a little bit more work, um, and you're doing things higher than a high school student would be doing. Like you would do a short report on Ishikawa in high school, and in college, in undergrad, you'd be like, okay, so what was the motive behind Ishikawa doing judo here? And then fourth, fifth, sixth, they're like your grad school, but doing your masters. And again, every field's master is, or field's master's degree program is varying level of difficulty. But the fact of that matter is that you're really getting into the field of how does judo affect, how did judo affect Ishikawa, but then how did judo affect everybody else that was around Ishikawa. You're getting deeper and deeper into, again, I'm using academia as an
Right. No, it
example, but
makes sense.
and then I said and then anything above sixth dan or sixth degree black belt, you could say that is getting your PhD, and you're like you're dropped in the deep end, and you're sucking it all in. Um, others may have a different way of leveling those things out, leveling those grades out into high school,
Right.
college, etc. But that's that's kind of like a rough thing if if you want to explain it to somebody. So when Ishikawa came over here, sixth, seventh dan, he was he finished his master's degree and he's starting his PhD. He's super seeped into it. Another thing to point out with Ishikawa is that he when he was still in Japan, he graduated high school. He went to college. He actually went to college for like Japanese literature. But on top of that, he actually went to a judo college where he was taught nothing else but judo. Hey, this is how you do a hip throw. This is how you do a leg lock. This is how you do X, Y, and Z. And it was it was kind of beaten into him of like, hey, this is how I'm supposed to do stuff. So when he came over here, and again, I'm like repeating myself, but at that time in like 1956, when he finally came over here, or 1958, I'm sorry, when he finally came over here, he knew his stuff, and nobody else was even at like no one else could hold a candle to him. Like the other guy in Philly at the time, I think was maybe a third or fourth dan. So like he's comparable, but like I mean there was just like an ocean between them of just like how much knowledge that Ishikawa had compared to him. So again, I'm just stressing that fact that he was the guy to go to on the East Coast.
So do we know why he even came to the States and brought at all?
Yes.
I mean, you're that immersed. Why even come here and waste your time? You're not going to get better at it. Like we don't have anybody here to make you better, other than teaching side to it make you better. But why come here?
Right, absolutely. Well, it's kind of an unfortunate turn of events, and a lot of I don't want to say a lot of his life, but major moments in Ishikawa's life were kind of actually were very, very unfortunate. Almost almost to the point where you're like, man, that just sucks. And it does suck. So after with all that preface, he winds up coming over to America, because while he was in Japan, he was teaching the uh, Tokyo Riot Police or the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, which was like the thing to teach. That was like the highest thing that you could do as a judo instructor. His brother wants to go into the lumber industry, and he needs some financial backers. Ishikawa says, "I will back you." He doesn't have all the money, but because, however, financial things are set up in Japan, the Tokyo Police Department kind of fronts him that money. Unfortunately, his brother's business venture goes sideways. All the money's lost. So Ishikawa has to pay back the has to pay back
The loan.
the sorry.
He has to pay the loan back.
Yes. Thank you. Sorry. Um, and he can only do that by still working at the police department, and each time the paycheck comes around, it's being taken out. It's being taken out. So by the time that's done, he's like, crap, I'm actually out of a job, because that was kind of like the stipulation with with this whole loan thing. So he then actually finds himself in Cuba, and then from Cuba he finds himself in America, because he didn't really have a home in Japan. Yes, he had a family. He before he went to Cuba, he had his third child, and then he goes to America, and it's like, well, this is the only thing I know. I have no recourse of going back to Japan, doing anything there. I have to be somewhere else, and America kind of becomes that place. Really, thanks to his short stint in the that military tour, and with Helen Foos. So it was kind of a circumstance that he found himself here in America, rather than staying in Japan. and it's kind of unfortunate.
I mean, it's interesting that through all those processes, and the name of the book one more time is
Takehiko Ishikawa, Judo's Quiet Master.
so if somebody just looked up Judo's Quiet Master, would it come up?
Yes, yes.
Because that first part, I don't know if anybody could spell all that, but I mean, I think they could get away with the Quiet Master, and it
Yes.
has a great ring to it. Also, I got to tell you, of like this shit could definitely be like some kind of a martial arts movie. Is this a character like a lot of these guys are so unique in who they are, and we find out that these folks existed in the United States and they showed up here. Is this one that you've ever heard someone say, "Hey," I mean, because just hearing you talk about it, I mean, I would find that absolutely fascinating. That here's this gentleman that has achieved at this level. He's training at the highest level that he could for judo with the Japanese police department. Things are going in a positive. Someone's willing to, and all of a sudden, his own brother tanks him, and the brother gets to stay where he's at, and he has to dip.
Hmm.
And through that, he's got to build himself back up. And it's America, especially that time. It's the land of opportunity. We've always heard those stories, but I can't imagine. I mean, in your research, did you find anything about like some of the other challenges he would have had to have faced? I mean, obviously there's a language barrier. Uh,
Yeah,
what's some of the things he
definitely.
had to deal with that you found out about?
So with that, and you actually bring up the language barrier. So throughout this research, I actually got to talk to Ishikawa's youngest daughter. We actually sat down for like 2 days over the phone, going back and forth.
Is
That
she
was
in
actually
Japan or is she here?
she's here. She's actually down in Virginia, I think. But her family's her family is all all around. But so in talking to her, um, she brought up this whole thing with uh, the pipe, the smoking pipe. Those old pipes that that you see in the old cartoons.
The super long one. Did he have one of those
Well,
super long ones?
no, it was like the short one that that Sherlock Holmes had. Like
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
So um, according to her, he didn't speak that well of English, and if he did, it was kind of like in small chunks and loud and of course, if you had if you're speaking a different language, you will have an accent. So there's all this stuff that he felt uncomfortable with. So with the language aspect and with the pipe, he explained it to her that with the pipe you can stick it in your mouth when a person's saying something, and you can be like being lost in thought, and not have to say anything, like it was a barrier between him and whoever else he was talking with, because he's like, well, I don't want to make myself look like a fool because I don't know the right English. What's funny though is that one of his students, when I interviewed him, interviewed the student, he said that Ishikawa knew like 3 or 4 different languages, and I'm like, that doesn't match up. But everyone remembers differently. But
But
yeah,
those could have
so
not been English languages. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
that is true. But he used the pipe a lot for a lot of those English interactions. But every month, no, I'm sorry, it was every week when he was still living in Philadelphia, he would drive up to, or he would somehow get up to New York City, and he would go to like Japantown up there, and it was right across from the Russian tea house. He would bring his kids. Um, but there was like a Japanese club up there, and he loved to play this strategy game called Go. It kind of looks like checkers, but it's kind of more like Othello, where you gotta have like more territorial space than your opponent. It gets really deep on how to uh, get land and everything else. But he used to go up there, play this Japanese board game, and he would not use the pipe at all with his Japanese confederates. He would just be speaking Japanese
He
fluently.
was
He'd be
comfortable.
Yeah, he was so comfortable. He was like shouting, yelling, laughing, and his daughter, uh, relating it to me, she's like I can't believe that there was this side of him that like no one else down in Philly really knew about because there was that uncomfortability between him and and the language. Um, and then like another thing that that was kind of like another challenge that that wound up being self-imposed, but like he since he was with Helen Foos and Helen Foos was paying him uh and supporting him, I should say, and actually his family while he was here. Um, there wasn't like a big drive for him to make buco money off of teaching judo. His whole philosophy, and I actually found this philosophy a lot when I was actually talking to kendo people, is that you make enough money to keep the lights on, and then that's that.
Why?
Ishikawa
Why?
had say
Why?
again.
Why?
Ishik Now there's the best thing that I can find throughout the research is that he really didn't want to touch money. Um, you can go back into Japanese history that and like the later part of the Edo period, samurai didn't want to touch money. So it could just be a cultural thing coming down through the ages, or it could just be that he made financial mistakes in the past and he doesn't want to
Got
handle
no. Either
money.
one of them
Hence,
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
but there was also a thing where he felt like, hey, if you're coming to judo, you you don't need to pay $50 billion to train. Come and train, pay the mat fee. It's $10 or whatever. Once you get the black belt, it's like 20 or whatever. I again, this is back in 1950s, 1960s
Right.
money. But he was just like, come and train. I just want to teach. This is my thing. I'm going to teach. And probably because he had Foos to back him up financially and everything else, I guess he didn't feel a need to. But then, like I said before, it felt like it was his job, his duty to go out and teach, and being paid for it wasn't part of his plan.
I just find this all fascinating. And look, folks, if you're just joining us and checking out what Antonio's got going on, he also is what- you're the editor and the creator. Like, what's all the because it's martial arts yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It
TT.
MAYTT.com is the website, also, right?
Hmm.
So now, how did all these things tie together with writing the book? And say the name of the book again, because I'm gonna mess it up.
Takehiko Ishikawa, Judo's Quiet Master.
Judo's Quiet Master. How did the two of them come together? Because you studied Aikido.
Hmm.
How does all this tie together between what you have going on at martial arts yesterday, today, and tomorrow.com? And look, folks, check it out. There's a lot of great articles. If you're into martial arts, you want to know about some of the history of martial arts, things, definitely check out what Antonio's got going on there. But how did the one come to be part of the other?
Sure thing. So what's funny is that the is one actually really influenced the other. So when I started researching my initial research on the Aikido book, Aikido Comes to America, shameless plug.
Hey,
Um,
plug that book. That is a great book, folks. That is such a great book, in my opinion.
well,
Did I get it
well,
right?
thank you for
Did I get that right?
yeah,
MAYTT.com. Yeah.
yep, that's good. Um, yeah, so researching for that book, I found that a lot of the early Aikido practitioners were actually Judo practitioners, and you know on varying degrees of what the sources say, they were they could hold their own in a judo match, which then made their aikido more
I could imagine.
applicable, or combative to dealing with other martial arts. Like, I mean, excuse me, like one guy was sent to France, one guy was sent to um, Hawaii, uh, Korea, Taiwan, etc. And they all had to prove Aikido, so they relied on their judo training or their kendo training or their karate training to help them demonstrate Aikido to the new people. So I wanted to go backwards since I was an Aikido practitioner. I wanted to go backwards and be like, hey, what can I do with Judo? So at the time, I was at Westchester University, and I found that there was a judo club there. So I started training. After like a month or two, the one guy, the president, was like, "Hey, we're going to go do a Sunday practice at our home school, home club, which was a school out in Bryn Mawr. Since COVID, it's actually moved locations within Bryn Mawr. So down there training, there's a black and white picture of a Japanese man with glasses on. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Because like no one's saying anything. It's not until like the fourth or fifth time that I'm there that I'm like, hey, who's that guy up there? And the older people, the older belts, the higher belts are like, I don't know. Somehow,
don't you love that? They're like, I don't know. I think that's the guy who owns the building or something. Like
maybe
the landlord, he wants his picture here. I don't know.
Right?
Great. It's such an American thing too. Oh, God, how do we do it? I don't know. Is that the guy who owns the Panda Express? Is that the Panda Express guy?
Down the street? Yeah, maybe.
We're such assholes. I love it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But
that's so good. It's all good. But in that exchange, the teacher there, Tom Blair, overhears and kind of comes up to me and he's like, well, that's Takehiko Ishikawa, two-time All Japan Judo champion, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. And then I go and train because there's not much to think about during training except for like, am I doing this throw right and can I fall correctly? And then once I get into my car, I'm driving and I doze off or whatever, mentally, not physically. But I'm like, who the hell is Takehiko Ishikawa? And why is he important here? So I'm doing some research on him, and there's there's a Wikipedia article that's like not even 200 words about him. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, there has to be more to this guy.
Right.
So I wound up talking with Tom Blair. I did an interview with him, and he's actually one of like the first judo interviews that I did, like the first 5 judo interviews that I did for MAYTT, Martial Arts Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. And then it just starts dawning on me that it's like I really need to find out more about this guy. So I ran reaching out to Blair again, and it's like, I want to do a biography on this guy. I want to learn more about him. Who's around that that can shed some more light. So I got like 3 people from him, and I kind of started going off from there. I wound up talking to another guy down in Philly, Art Bourgeot. I think I'm saying his last name right. It's very French. But he was a great source. He really knew Ishikawa personally. More on a personal level, more so than anyone else that I kind of talked with. But it went from there. It went to finding Black Belt magazine articles about him. So like I just kept going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I wound up actually reaching out to the Kodokan, which is like the birthplace of judo in Japan, in Tokyo. And they wound up having like 4 or 5 archival articles in their judo periodical. I'm like, oh crap, this is great. So I had someone translate it enough so that I can use it, and then again, just like kind of peering out here and there, I wound up talking to Ishikawa's youngest daughter, Atsuko. So, I know this is a long way around to get, to answering your question, but like it was just really to try and find out more of this guy, because like if someone's having a picture up on the wall,
It's got to
it's
be
got to
about.
be yeah, it's got to be important. It's got to be more than 200 words on Wikipedia. And I'm just like, what? So there's that knack of just trying to
And you're
find
a
out.
curious guy. Let's be honest here. You're a curious person that wants to dig into it. And if you're curious, folks, of what Antonio is talking about here, again, MAYTT.com. That's martial arts yesterday, today, tomorrow.com. He's got his first book that's all about Aikido coming to the United States, how it got here, what was the process there. And then he has the most recent book, the Judo's Quiet Master. You saw I did that, right? You saw I did Judo's Quiet Master. Because I'm professional and I know how to do these things. I can slide that right on in there.
Yes, you can.
It's a skill set that I have, just being able to slide that through. Folks, if you're just joining us, please, if you got questions about martial arts, maybe you trained in martial arts, Cody, Cody's 1,000% correct. I am so great with names. World, like I say them all just perfectly. But if you had some questions, please let me know. Now, I'm curious though, with Ishikawa and his process, him being here. I mean, if he's established this life, he's got a daughter. It Cody said no one ever about me and saying names. It's so bad. And I apologize to everyone, Cody, when it comes to their names. But and we're getting close to closing the bar here soon, folks. So again, if you had questions about martial arts, let us know. Antonio may not be able to answer, but I bet you he knows where to point you in the right direction for it. Because I do have some curiosity questions. As because you're kind of more of a purist here, but why go back to Japan? He's got a daughter here. He's got sounds like he established a life here. He's created something for himself here in the U.S. that sounds like it was pretty valuable to him. Why go back to Japan? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, two things. One, well, let me back up. Even though he moved here and he made a point to bring over his family, unfortunately, when he did bring over his kids and his wife, like 6-8 months later, that marriage fell apart, so he was left with his kids. But when he when he was still here in the United States, whether it was in Philadelphia or in Virginia Beach, he would go back to Japan every once in a while. He's he still had family there. Actually, oh, he went back there every so often. Because he still had some friends there. One to see them every so often. One thing I should point out, like the timeline of his life was really hard to pin down because everyone had a slightly different timeline. So exactly how these trips back to Japan or trips up to New York City fit into teaching judo and everything else was kind of hard to really
Lockdown.
lock down. But the fact that we know that we went that he went back to Japan and etc. But in the 1980s, he was going back there, and he stayed for a few months. I think from what Atsuko said, it was a family matter, and it was during that time he met another woman, um, Aiko, who actually wound up being a very I don't want to say high ranking, but very leading mind in in the medical field. I know that she was a doctor, so she was up there in profession. So there is that. Of course, if you know any males, women really play a big role in decisions. But on the but on the flip side, over here in America, Foose was getting older by the 1970s. I'm sorry, by 1969, she actually had moved down to Virginia Beach, and at that point, she actually had adopted Ishikawa's children.
Oh, that makes sense then.
So so Foos was getting older. She had kids of her own, and the eldest son wanted to have more to do with the company than his mother. Um, to to put this generally, there was internal fighting, which basically led Foos being put into a nursing home.
Oh shit.
Yeah, but from what Achiko swore, is that she was still all there 95% of the time in the head. She could still take care of her two giant Great Danes, and unfortunately those had to be removed. I'm not sure if they were unfortunately put down or put up for adoption. Either way, the son really wanted to have more to do and not really want to have his mother in there. So with essentially Ishikawa's backer, financer for years in a retirement home, and whatever legalese that you can figure out that basically barred her most likely from accessing her own money to support
Yeah.
Ishikawa or anybody else for that matter. Really was like Ishikawa was like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how how the U.S. justice system works. Even though he was there for 20 odd years, he never really needed to learn any of that. So with his backer in a retirement home, and I'm
Yeah.
laughing because it's just historical irony, and him finding almost another life in Japan, with
From one sugar mama to another. Is that what we're saying here?
I don't think it was a sugar. No, because Aiko was roughly Ishikawa's age, or maybe a little bit younger, so it wasn't really.
Okay. Just making sure.
No,
Because
it's okay.
my man had one woman supporting him financially here. He gets back to Japan. So I mean, he wasn't just a judo player. He might have been just a regular old player. I mean, he might have had a little bit of just player in him, is what I'm hearing.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I don't know. No one, unfortunately, no one that I talked to has mentioned any of that. Ishikawa has really made sure that his personal life was
Personal.
really personal. There was many things that he wouldn't actually share with students. If you talk to Art Bourgeot, there was a lot of things that he opened up to him about, but it wasn't everything. Fun fact is that actually Art Bourgeot's interview is on Martial Arts Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. So if you
Nice.
want to check that out, I think I published that back in 2021. So still.
One of my best
So,
friends, Jim, is watching us over on Instagram right now. Jim, I know you got questions about martial arts, and I don't mean like can you do split kicks or anything still. But so all right, so I got some curiosity questions because
sure thing.
Since we've known each other here for a little bit, Antonio, from the Aikido to studying Ishikawa, you're in that purest vein of what martial arts is. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I guess how would you define purist? Because I'm not really sure if I consider myself a purist on anything.
Well, I mean, like if you're willing to go out and you're studying these martial arts, you're looking into what they are, you're finding out about these martial arts, you're really taking the time to understand the roots of them. You care about the history of them.
Right. Yes. Okay. I can go with that. Yes.
So all that being said, in your studies, and I find it interesting, and I'm really curious of your feeling because I know the way I think about this as somebody who trained in Aikido. How are your feelings, after understanding more about Ishikawa and Judo, what you know about O Sensei with Aikido and all those kind of things? And then we come full circle today with the mixed martial arts world, where you might see a guy who studied judo, studied wrestling, he studied boxing. I don't know if any of them have ever studied hapkido, but but something like that. What's the French one? The French ship martial art.
Is that Savat?
Savat. A lot of people don't realize the first person to ever win an Ultimate Fighter was a Savat guy. That was the first ever. Savat is actually, I'll tell you, hand-to-hand street fight. You don't want to mess with too many dudes that are doing that. That's a different animal in and of itself. And if look it up, folks, it was designed to fight ship to ship, French combat. It's not really a martial arts as we think about it, but it is a martial art. What are some of the things that you've learned or feelings you have personally towards this evolution in martial arts, and that really, like, MMA doesn't have a name. Like we would never be like, you study ass kick do. Like what are your feelings there?
Well, that's actually a really good question. Thank you. That's actually really deep. So
Thank you.
I think it is.
That's
It is
very brutal.
it is. But I think I think people get I think people forget that if you were in the military, or which is where a lot of these martial arts stem from in one shape or another, no matter how watered down it may be, it can still find its roots back to the
Combat.
combat. So if you look at your modern soldier, they're not just using your assault rifle. They're also using the tactical knife. They're also using the pistol. They're or their sidearm. They're using other tactics to get a better position to fire upon. So if you take it with that, that's a mixed martial art. And if we put it into or if we put it into the context of the samurai, which again Aikido, Judo kind of comes from, um, you need to learn how to ride a horse, and then on top of that, the samurai used to be considered a mounted archer uh, class instead of what we think of them today. So you need to ride a horse and shoot a bow and arrow. And then on top of that, once you had larger armies, it's like, well, okay, I should probably know how to use a spear or a pike. And then like, oh wait, what's my sidearm? My sidearm is my sword, so I should know a little bit about the sword. So as we keep going in here, the the samurai or the military units of back then and even today already have mixed martial arts um, thrown in together because this is how they were trying to survive or gain the advantage on the battlefield.
I see
Bring
that.
it bring it over here into the civilian martial arts, because I think the distinction needs to be made. Excuse me, of the martial arts that we do here, in the confines of air conditioning and heating, as opposed to those that's done out on the muddy field somewhere else. Um, is that the stuff over here in MMA? I mean, everyone was doing some sort of MMA, at least from what I can tell, in massive popularity, like since the 60s and 70s. I mean, early Aikido people were, here in the United States, they were previous Judo people or they were previous karate people. So there was already mixed martial arts going on, and
They were already blending. It was already a
yeah,
blend.
yeah.
And that was my
However,
curiosity, because
yeah,
wasn't O Sensei was a jujitsu or a judo guy
yeah,
originally,
yeah,
wasn't he?
too. And and he dabbled in sword. He dabbled in Jo, the short stick or short staff, I should say. But like what happened later on is like at least by and I'm doing some generalizations here. At least by like the 70s or 80s, there was a standardization through the martial arts over here. So it was like, hey, if we want to be Shotokan karate, we want to make sure that we were doing textbook Shotokan karate stuff. If we're doing Aikido, we need to be doing textbook Aikido, because again, if we take an Aikido person out and put them somewhere else, they have to be doing roughly the same Aikido. If you put it with again, let's just use O Sensei, who took a lot of different arts, put it into his own thing called Aikido. He modified, and I think other people who did similar things, past and present, took things from other arts and modified them to fit what they were trying to do. Mixed martial arts is just a little more aggressive demonstration of taking all these things, putting into what works for one person, what wants to work for one person, and then putting that into the ring and beating the crap out of each other.
Completely. That makes perfect sense to me. And so you understand, Nate, used to ride horseback, haven't rode in probably 30 years, but used to be quite proficient on horseback, believe it or not. Went to summer camp all the time. And I can't see you ever studying Shotokan. I would like you and me one day, we'll go, I'll do Aikido, you do Shotokan. We'll see what we end up with. But I'm a dirty fighter. I used to study. My dojo was right up in Lansdale, and it was called 17 Ryu. And the idea was our symbol was a cactus, because the idea was anytime someone touches you, it should hurt them, just like a cactus. They should hurt for touching you. And I loved it. I studied that for a long time, enjoyed it a lot. So, look, folks, as I've said many times, Antonio's got his book about the history of Aikido coming to the United States. He's got his new book, the Judo the Silent. I'm telling you, bro, I'm just going to butcher the names. It's just easier this way. Judo Silent Master. He's going to say the names of them all correctly here in a moment, but you can find everything he's got on his website, MAYTT.com. That stands for Martial Arts Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow.com. He writes articles on martial arts. He writes different stories on it. If you're curious about something, I guarantee you he's the guy that comes along with it. Crazy Jiu-Jitsu actually has a very interesting history on Jiu-Jitsu ending up in South America and in Brazil, and then how the Gracie family adapted it to their own thing. Because don't forget, down in Brazil, you also have Capoeira is down in that area also. I don't personally think you see much capoeira in jiu-jitsu, but I think that maybe a lot of the balance work is there, but that's my personal opinion. But you can look all these things up. Again, it's MAYTT.com. You can see what he's got going. As I always say every week, folks, if you're finding me through Antonio or Antonio through me, make sure you're hitting that like, share, follow, all those kind of things. It really does have a value to us. It really does mean something. If you're looking to support the show, over on our website, theabovethebarpodcast.com, we've got a link to our TeePublic, which is our t-shirts and stuff like that. You can find all kinds of stuff on there, like our newest one, which I laughed so hard when I heard this dude say it. So I had to make a t-shirt out of it. It says, we drink sweet tea, not socialist Kool-Aid, which made me laugh so hard, especially because it was an older Chinese man who was saying it. He's like, we're from the Southeast. We drink sweet tea, not socialist Kool-Aid. And I was like, this is great. I love this guy. This is hilarious to me. So I made a t-shirt for that. We got all the different show t-shirts you can pick up over there. So make sure you do that for us. That's how this all keeps going. Anything coming up, Antonio, any talks you've got going, anywhere somebody could see you? I want you to say the names of these books one more time, because I know I butchered them.
That's all good. Thank you. Well, one, thank you for having me. Two, nothing right now planned for the books where I'm going to be showing up. But if you want me to show up and talk or throw somebody in Aikido or Judo, let me know. We'll figure something out. So like Sean said before, author of Aikido Comes to America. Great introduction to how Aikido came to America. That could be found on Amazon. Newest book, Takehiko Ishikawa, Judo's Quiet Master. That's also on Amazon right now. It's only for pre-order for the ebook. There are the paperback and the hardback coming out September 16th, so in 2-ish weeks. So if you want to reserve your copy, get an ebook. If you want to make sure you buy a physical copy, set the alarm for September 16th. Hopefully by midnight, it's going to pop up, but Amazon's weird. Amazon's like, like the God complex thing. So I don't know what's going on with that. But if anything else piqued your interest, you can, again, like Sean said, find me at martial arts yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's where most, if not all, my research goes. I've been posting up some interview excerpts from my Ishikawa research. I think I have 3 more I need to post, which are going to be coming out later this month and into October. So if you're interested in that, and yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Martial Arts Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, Instagram, Reddit, somewhere on Spotify too, maybe. But yeah.
Little everywhere you can find him, folks. And look, make sure you join us again next week. Next week we have, her name is, I love her name, Athena Demeter. So Athena wrote a book called Escape. It's her personal journey as an Arabian woman breaking free to discover her true identity and freedom. The book delves into themes of resilience, courage, and self-discovery. I cannot wait to talk to her, especially in today's culture, as somebody coming from a very restrictive society for women to another culture where, we don't know if we're exploiting or we're empowering. So to talk to somebody who's come from that culture to this culture, I cannot wait to talk to her. As always, folks, make sure those likes, shares, and follows. Now, don't log off on me, Antonio. If you remember how this all works, the guest always gets the final word. So what's our final word tonight?
Our final word is, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but the final word is endure.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.